Hey, it's Kiara, and I'm hanging out with Rob on Front Row Live.
It's good to finally get to talk to you. I've been wanting to talk to you for quite some time now, and congratulations with the new single, Never Let You.
Thank you.
Talk to me about the creative process of this track and like how did this song kind of get kickstarted?
Well, so I go through phases where I literally want to quit music, and I know that sounds horrible, but I get so discouraged sometimes, and then I start to question, like what would my life have been like if I never picked up that guitar, wrote Gold, and like that happened. So it's always like the grass is greener situation, and then I have to remind myself like, no, like each situation has its own like, pros and cons and stuff. And so when I was going through this like dilemma or whatever, maybe it was a few months ago, this was like a recent song. I remember I had to drive to the studio, and I don't drive. So that was like one stressor. So I was already like on edge for the day. So I get to the studio, and I'm just like, oh my God. And there's like my two friends, like both the producers, Tim and Omega, were there, and I just started venting. I was like, you know what? Like, I don't know. I think I'm gonna quit. Like, whatever. And they're like, okay, all right. Like, let's make a song or something. I was like, okay. So they like started playing a guitar riff, and like it was like 3 minutes in, I was like, okay, I got an idea. Can I go on the mic like right now? And they're like, yeah. So I like went on and then wrote it. And how I do it is I'll like start with an idea. Like I'll have like a good, maybe the first verse, and then I'll just stay on the mic and like keep writing it. And so that's what happened. And that's how the song, and then that was like done. And it was like a whirlwind. I was like, okay, I feel much better. Like I said all that, and yeah, so.
You mentioned that Gold was kind of an inspiration, thinking about like what if you hadn't done that. First of all, like what kind of impact did Gold have on your career? And then secondly, like how different was this creative process compared to when you were working on Gold?
So Gold, like literally my life changed like out of nowhere pretty much. And I was like super overwhelmed, a lot of pressure. And I wasn't, didn't even know who I was then or whatever. So even when I was writing that, I didn't even know the song. Like I hated the song. I was like, I had it on my computer for like a couple years. And so that process was definitely a lot more different because I've like was just venting. Well, not really. I mean, because I was venting in this one, but I just had I was really naive. I had no experience in anything. And so now this time around, it's like I've seen a lot. I've been through a lot. And trying to put that into words is like, and then I'm like, what am I even, and then I'm at the point where I was questioning, am I even allowed to say this? Am I even allowed to write this? Am I going to get in trouble? Like, so that's like where my head was at with this one. So it's definitely like there were a lot of differences in the creative process for sure. I was more overthinking.
Now as far as your songwriting though, like do you feel like it's evolved like dramatically, or do you feel, I mean, like how do you see that when you're writing new music?
I think so. I think now it's definitely evolved. Like I feel like before I was like not as good at telling like a story. Everything was really vague and open to interpretation. And I feel like now if I want to, for certain songs, I can like bring people to that world or like bring people to that moment, and like be more to the point with it. So I think that's changed in a way, but over the years I've learned like a lot from different writers that I've worked with in different sessions. I feel like after each session, I definitely take something away from it. Like, oh, so-and-so like started the song like this, or they started the melody like that and then did that, like so it's like I try to like soak up as much as I can, and I feel like now I have like a lot more resources and like things to pull from, as opposed to back then I was just like in my room with the guitar writing, whatever, so I feel like now it's like I definitely have more like I don't know, more knowledge, I feel like, in it.
Now, the fact that you mentioned like before you were being vague and now you're kind of to the point,
Yeah.
was that something that you kind of had to get used to, like as far as vulnerability goes, because you weren't comfortable like opening up to your audience the way that you do now?
Yeah, I would say it's definitely taken me years to get to that point, because I was so unsure of myself and didn't know who I was, and like had people telling me like, oh, you should talk like that, wear that, look like that, go to this, like, and so I didn't even know what, I couldn't fully figure out who I was by myself, like, because everyone was telling me. So I feel like it's definitely taken time to like finally be like super transparent and open and honest, and finally let people get to know who I am. Because I know even in the beginning I didn't do interviews like this. Like, they terrified me. And I feel like people might have gotten upset or like offended or whatever, but it wasn't anything personal other than the fact that I was like terrified to answer questions I didn't know the answer to. They're like, what? Asking me about myself. And I'm like, I don't know. And then at the same time, I was like, why do people care? Like, why not? I thought you just wanted music. But now I understand, and now I'm like, I get it. So, yeah. I was just dumb. I was just super dumb. I was horrible. Honestly, looking back, I want to apologize to anyone who knew me in that time. But yeah, when I had pink hair, it was like, run. Everyone was like, oh God. Like, I know some people that I think are still like a little afraid, but yeah.
You also mentioned like going through phases. So through your artist development, like as you kept going through these different phases, what kind of like made you realize, okay, this is who I am as an artist, this is what my sound is, now it's the time to work on my debut album?
I think just getting that confidence back that I had in the low-key savage like era, because with that I knew right away, yes, this song, this order, this is the artwork, like I had the complete vision. And then I went through the last few years where I was really unsure of a lot of things, and I was like, when I was asked questions, like I was super indecisive, and I was like, I don't know, and so even when I was like, which song should we put out, I'll go back and forth with like, maybe that one, and I'm like, no, that one. And then even when it comes down to like the mix, I couldn't even get a mix done. Like I was like, no, change that, nope, it's not perfect, blah blah. So it's like I was so unsure, and like I went through so many phases of like where I would only write anything but like super sad stuff, like, or really dark. And then it was like, okay, like we don't want like the whole album to be like this, or so like then I would move on to like something else, and it would be more like uppy and like whatever. But I feel like I had to go through those little like phases, like that maze, to get to like where I am now, like that light at the end of the tunnel. It sort of just clicked. Like it was just like I woke up and I was like, okay, like even recently though, like even 7 months ago when it was like pick the songs for the album, I had like 20 songs, or like 30, and I was like still sifting through it. But then something happened, and I'm not even sure what, where I was like, okay, this is the story I want to tell, and this is what I want it to be. And I think it was like when I made like a couple trips back to LA, because I was in Chicago at the time, I was definitely super, like I was really going through something, and I felt like, you know what, I'm just going to be honest, I'm saying what I want. And that's when I wrote like Never Let You, and even Accidental, even though that one was like a year prior, but still I was like able to look back and put myself in like specific situations that have happened in the past and like put it into the song, if that makes any sense.
No, it does. Did Never Let You kind of form that foundation for the album? Was that the initial song?
I think so. It wasn't the initial that formed it, but it was more like I wrote that. I didn't know what anyone would have thought. I sent it off to like my manager and my publisher, and they're like, yo, we love this. Like, they're like, I almost like, they started crying, and I was like, oh my God, like, wow. So then I was like, okay, like, like, this has to go on the album. Like, this is like, because I wrote it like pretty much on my own. So it was like, they're like, this is definitely like a moment. It's like, I don't know how to explain it. They were like, we haven't like, not that it was like I graduated from one style of writing to like another, and they were like, oh my God, like, whoa, you know? So it was like, that was definitely a moment, and it did set like the theme a little for the album of like, okay, I'm just going to be completely 100% with people about stuff, if that makes any sense. I'm like, I feel like I ramble sometimes because my brain is like trying to put myself back in that time. But also too, like, it's like I've noticed through making this album, like with certain songs that I like, Accidental is my favorite one on the entire album because I even remember writing it. I was able to mentally like put myself back in that moment of what the song's about, and I could vividly like picture like the night that it was about, you know? So it's like, that's when I kind of knew like, okay, that's definitely one that has to be on there. That one's special. So it's like when that sort of stuff happens, that's when I can like kind of sift through and pick the ones.
And like when you go through those time frames, when you're writing the music and you go back in time to like kind of like remember and experience that moment in time again, like, are those hard moments to kind of go back to? Or like, does it take you a while to go back to those moments, or like the moment you start writing, you just automatically just like go back in there?
The moment I start writing, I automatically am there, and I am there for the next 8 hours, like of that session or however long the session is. And it's definitely hard to get me to that though. Like I was writing, because I wrote it like a year ago, and I was writing it about something that happened like a year and a half prior. So it's definitely takes me time to process and really figure out, you know, how to say what I need to say, like, you know. So it takes my brain that long, but it's kind of like torture in a way, because then I was like, I'd be in a good mood, get to the studio, and then be like, oh, guess I'm writing about this today, because my brain just automatically went to it. And then I would just be like so sad. Like if the song was sad, you know, which it is. So it's definitely like really hard to do that and to like, I don't know, put myself back in that moment. But once I get there, it's like, I just write it. I just go all in. It's like, yeah.
With this album, like, do you feel, because you've had experiences like collaborating with like rock, rap, EDM, like,
yeah,
do you feel that those collaborations that you've done in the past, do you feel like they kind of some way kind of bled into this record, as far as like sonics go?
Yeah, definitely. I'd say there's more guitar here and there. There's like definitely some of the songs are darker and have that sort of rock, like alternative type vibe, and then some have more of like the not R&B. I don't know how to describe it because I don't want to describe it wrong, but it's like I listen to like a lot of Chris Brown because I just love like the melodies, the production, everything. So there's like definitely a taste of that in a song, and then there's like really pop, and then yeah, there are. I feel like each, yeah, it's definitely shows up in the album, for sure. Because it's like, yeah, those experiences have definitely, and plus like what I listen to is like rock, rap, you know, a little bit of pop. Yeah.
Now, where are you as far as the album? Are you still, you mentioned there was like 20, 25 songs earlier, but like, are you still looking for or recording music to add to the record, or are you like done with that portion of the album?
Right now I'm done with that portion, unless like between now and when it comes out I write like a song where I'm like, this has to go on it. But other than that, like it's like we're finishing up like final mixes and mastering, and now doing artwork and stuff. So yeah, that's where we're at with that. I mean, I never thought I would see that day because I'm so like indecisive still a little bit. So it's like to be able to like kind of be like, okay, this is done, like put it away and be like, all right, mix master, let's go. That's like definitely, I never thought I'd see that happening ever, like at all. But yeah.
What would you say is like has been your biggest challenge with this debut album?
I would say just, I don't know. I mean, I would say just having the confidence in like what I've created pretty much. Cause I'll second guess things, especially like it's been 5 years since I put out like a project. So, I mean, I've done singles obviously, but like, it's definitely like the whole second guessing myself and stuff. For sure.
Yep.
Especially on those mixes. I can't even do the mixes. They'll ask me and I'm like, can someone else just, I feel like every time I try to help with it, I just mess it up. Like there's some where it's like, you hear it at the end and you're like, whoa, like this is awful. Like, because I'm saying, turn that up, turn that down, turn that, you know? So now I just like, there's a couple of people I really, really trust with that. And I'm like, okay, I'll like definitely give my 2 cents and be like, oh, I think that should be a little louder. That should be quieter. But like, I let them kind of do that. But yeah, that was definitely a challenge. For sure.
How soon can fans expect this album? Do you have like a date or a time frame yet for it?
Yeah, it'll be out in the fall. So I can't give like an exact month or date yet, I don't think, but it definitely
but 2020.
Like 2020 for sure. Yeah.
Okay. That's awesome.
Also I'm sprinkling like songs here and there like between now and when it drops. So like when you least expect it. Kind of like the last one. I didn't really prepare anyone. I was just like, oh, here's like a 2-day notice of like, yeah, there's a song. But yeah, I'd say keep your eyes open for that.
Nice. Well, I'm definitely excited to hear what else you have for this album.
Thank you.
Because I've been a fan of your work for some time, and I've been a fan of your collaborations also. So I just feel like, I don't know, I feel like the wait has been definitely worth it. So
yeah, thank you.
Put nerves on you, but
yeah, no, I'm glad people didn't forget because it's been like 5 years. I'm like, whoa. I look back and I'm like, oh my God, that was that long ago. Holy cow. And then I also will go and look at like other artists, like between, you know, like, oh, they put out this album and then like 2 years later that album. I'm like, oh my God, I feel like no one has taken 5 years. Like I'm like, okay, it's usually like 2, 3, maybe 4, maybe like, you know, 1.
But it's your debut. You have to be extra careful with the debut. So no matter how long it takes, like that, you know, as long as you feel ready, that's what's more important.
Yeah. No, you're right.
Yeah. So
I'm excited.
As far as like collaborations go, like I wanted to ask you about like collaborating with Mike Shinoda specifically, like in the studio.
Yeah.
Because like that's one artist, like obviously like a lot of us grew up with Linkin Park. I was one of them as well. But like Mike Shinoda is also like such an incredible producer and such an incredible like artist. So like, what was that experience like for you, like being able to collaborate with him in the studio for Heavy? And like, how did he kind of like, I don't know, maybe change the way that you think about the recording process or the writing process?
First of all, he's so smart. Like I'm intimidated sometimes. I feel so dumb because he's like knows everything when it comes to like all that stuff, like all like the production, recording, everything. I remember when we recorded my vocals for Heavy, I think the first day he recorded me. I think the engineer was there. I can't remember, but he was telling me, because I was like, I guess I was more singing it. And he's like, no, like speak it, like just talk it. Pretend you're just talking the verse lyrics or whatever. And he's like, try like that. So then I did that and I was like, whoa. Like he played back and I was like, that makes so much more sense. Like I was trying way too hard, like to like sing it or whatever. So he's definitely like has like really good advice with that. And then I remember too when I was singing the chorus part, the hook, he was like, okay, stand against the wall and just like yell it. He's like, we do this all the time. Like, just do it. Just like go against the wall and just yell. Like, don't care how it sounds. And I like did that. And I was like, you know, at first I was nervous. I was like, what? I like, don't know. I like not comfortable with like my loud voice, but they definitely he like got me out of my comfort zone with that. And like definitely pushed me to like, you know, not be like scared of my voice or anything, you know? So I'd say that process definitely learned a lot through all of that. And that was only the first day. Then I think that was like a 5-hour, I think I was probably standing in the booth for 5 hours, just like recording. And then I went back another day and did like another 5 hours.
Man.
So, yeah. And I was so nervous, like when Chester was singing, like, cause he wasn't at the studio, but obviously like he already had recorded his part. So I was just like so like nervous, intimidated and everything. Cause I was like, oh my God, I'm actually like singing along with him. Like, holy cow, like I'm such a fan. Like, yeah, I was definitely like, is this real life? Like the whole time I was like, someone like punched me in the face because I'm like, is this happening like at all? But
that must be cool though, to like be an artist yourself and, you know, an artist that's been heard throughout the world, and then be able to still have that kind of feeling when you work with someone that you've kind of like looked up to for so long.
I was so nervous. I was like, oh my God. I was like, it's kind of a good thing I feel like he wasn't at the studio that day, because I would have just been, I don't think I would have been able to sing. I would have been like, I can't, like, because he's so good that I would just sound like trash, you know? I was just, yeah.
You gotta believe in yourself.
I know, but that was honestly, like, I hadn't done a session. And plus, I think that was really close to when I had my tonsils out.
Oh,
so,
man.
like, the funny story is, like, the first time I went in the studio with Mike, he's like, all right, like, because I was like, oh, I have, like, a couple ideas. He's like, okay, like, hop on the mic. And I hopped on the mic, and I, like, couldn't hit any notes. Because I had just had surgery, like, a month prior.
Jeez.
And I was like, normally I don't sound like this. I was like, I don't know what's happening. He's like, oh, it's okay. I was like, I just had like surgery. And he was like, oh, well, duh. Like, that makes sense. And I was like, God, all I was thinking is, I was like, oh my God, he's never going to want to work with me again because I can't like hit any notes. But he was like super cool about it and understanding. But yeah, that's really funny. The first time I'll just like embarrass myself. But yeah.
That's amazing.
But yeah.
because you've been able to feature on so many artists' music. Like, can fans expect maybe some collaborations for this album?
Oh yeah, there are features on the album, and I don't want to say who, but I'm definitely like a big fan of like who's on there. So
nice.
Yeah, I think people have been asking for one of these collabs. So.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah, they've been asking, so it'll be there.
Now, will these collabs maybe come out before the album, or we wait for the album to drop for them? I think
they might. I really don't know. I forget the order of the songs, honestly. I forget. I don't want to be like, yeah, they are, and then they're not, but I'm pretty sure. Well, as long as you're excited, like when you least expect it. Sometimes I'm even surprised.
It's happening right now.
Yeah, no, I'll log on to like something like I was looking at like Spotify for artists, and I was like, oh shit, like I have a song coming out. Damn. Like, so sometimes I'm like, oh, I forgot, like because I just like will forget.
Right.
So yeah. And I get like super excited. I'm like, oh my God, I didn't even make a countdown for that one. Wow. It's 2 days. Yeah.
Well, we're excited for the album, and I know your fans have been waiting for the album, so definitely looking out for that. And thank you again for taking the time, and thank you for talking to me about your new music.
Thank you. Yeah, no, thanks for having me.